Look at retro scale modelling. This is MasterBox's Edge of the Universe figure set. Scale is 1/24. Now this is on the back of the diorama I just worked on. And as I said in that video at the start, I'd done another diorama in a D&D setting and using the Master of the Universe figures. And these are the figures that I used. Now, I've done this back in 2022, I think it was. I haven't put the video up because I didn't think anyone would be interested in the a diorama for a D&D setting. But since I've done the beholder and the fighting pit, I thought, well, I may as well go and do the video for this. Now I've recorded it all, but I haven't done any of my notes or what paint I used and things like that. So when I list paints and that on throughout this build, I'm just going to be taking visual cues, so I may get the colours slightly wrong. I'm not 100% sure. You'll just have to bear with it on that one, unfortunately. And that was because when I recorded the build, I had no intentions of putting it up to view. That was just for my own personal little thing, So luckily I still have the recordings, but I don't have my notes and what materials I used. So I'll just struggle along as best I can. But at least this way, you'll get to see me building them anyway and putting them in a diorama setting. So let's get this build started and see how well I get on. So I'm starting off with this figure. This is called back off, as you can see, and I'm only using the female figure in this particular set. The first thing to do is paint the eyes, so it's Rebel Aquacolor 05 white to paint the white of the eyes. And then it's Rebel Aquacolor 50 light blue for the iris. And for the flesh tones, it's Umbro 61 flesh. Now, I explained a little bit on the last video series of videos I've done with the eyes. What I tend to do is I paint in the white first, but I overpaint on that so it's covering the whole, not just the eye, but onto the cheek and eyebrow as well. And then I'll take the flesh tone, then cut back in to that area and fill in the gaps and shrinking the white as I go along. In a D&D setting, the character that I'm creating here has a plate mail armor, so the mold has to be changed slightly. So all the details on this figure, the ammo belt and things like that, I'm taking off. I just want the actual shape of the torso. For the hair, I'm using Mr. Hobby 12 matte black. And for the lips, it's Rebel Aquacolor 36 carmine red. Now I've modified the body, it's time to put it together. Now there is some colour on that, but that was me experimenting on what type of colour to use for the body armour. So just ignore that because that will be getting painted over anyway. The fit was okay, considering that I modified the part. It fitted quite well. Onto the legs, and it's Rebel Aquacolor 06 tar black. I didn't want a glossy finish here, and I didn't really want a satin finish either. The tar black is a good alternative. It's sort of in between the two. It's a bit difficult to see what I'm doing here, but essentially I'm just attaching the hair to the head. For the clothing, it's Rebel Aquacolor 46 native olive. Now, just to give this a bit of context, this diorama came around because one of the D&D campaigns I was on, my character Grayson was snatched by a flying griffin. Well, a griffin does fly, obviously, and deposited on a tree. Now, I was very, very beat up at the time. My character almost died. And I forgot how many hit points I had. Now, hit points determines how healthy your character is. And I jumped up the tree and immediately died because of the fall killed me. So this is what I'm depicting here on this diorama, and it's called The Death of Grayson. But anyway, back to the build, and I'm using Revit Aquacolor 91 steel for the body armor. So you can see I'm painting over the darker areas that I was testing the color paint on. So it's time for the main assembly, and it's fairly simple. The legs are together, and like the other figures that I done, you have to be careful of the lineup here, making sure that everything does line up, because even if it's slightly off, it will be able to tell, because there's no actual sockets to fit into. It's just plastic onto plastic on a straight edge. It does tend to lean more to mistakes and more obvious mistakes once you've completed the figure. I know the argument is, well, why don't you paint it once you've assembled it? I never do that. You probably noticed that by now. I prefer to pre-paint beforehand. It's just something I always do. Each to their own, I suppose, but this is how I prefer to do it. Here I'm painting the dagger, and the sheath is Mr. Hobby 463 red brown. The hilt is 06 tab black Revit Aquacolor, and the highlights is Revit Aquacolor 50 light blue. Now these are quite small parts, so I haven't gone too much into details, but the armor belt, which holds the sheath and pouches and everything, that was all in the brown colour, and also the steel and metal parts were in the steel colour and so on. But as I said, the dagger's quite small. As you can see there, it's just taken it off the sprue on the mat. And that gets fitted to the side of her hip. So as you can see, I've already fitted one arm, so I'm just fitting the last arm now. Now, this should be raised slightly lower than I've actually got it on here. This is because when I put the sword in, I want it to be slightly higher. It didn't make much difference to the actual location joint as such. I was able just to raise it up slightly to my liking. Now I'm going on to the Tiberius character figure, because the character I'm working on here is an automaton, so it's all metal. So this figure was perfect for it. So I'm just assembling the parts now before painting on this one, because it's all basically the one colour, so I don't have to worry about too much detailing on this. So painting it beforehand doesn't really matter. Now this figure was made up exactly the same way as the other figure, so there's no point in going into too much detail with that either. Just the legs, torso and head all put together to form the main figure. The painting was relatively simple as well. For the belt, I'm using Mr. Hobby's 38 red steel for this. Moving on to the main body colour here, and I'm doing a two-tone effect here. So the first colour I'm laying down is Tamiya's X32 Titanium Silver, and then I'm moving on to Tamiya's X31 Titanium Gold. And this is just dry brushing this colour over the top of the silver. Make sure it's completely dry before you do this, goes without saying, but you know, and just highlighting all the raised areas. And lastly, I'm using Tamiya's X19 Smoke, and this is for the visor on the helm. So it's back to the female character, and I have to make a sword here. So I've just got a little bit of strip of plastic card, and I'm just measuring up the desired length, and then taking a smaller piece of plastic card and just cutting it to make up the handle for the hilt. Now, this is just a very thin bit, and I'm just snipping a little edge part of it and to insert it into the larger part, which will become the blade. But before I attach it, I'm just going to be shaping the blade itself. So I'm just cutting off the edges to form a point, and I'll file this down to the desired angle that I wish. It doesn't take long to do this at all, just a few minutes. It's a very simple rudimentary shape to build. And once I got my desired shape, I was able then just to fit the hilt to the blade. And then I took a thinner piece and laid it across for the crossguard for the hilt. And then I used Mr. Hobby 38 red steel for the hilt. And then the blade I used Revit Aquacolor 90 silver for the actual blade itself. And once I trimmed down the excess on the hilt, It was a simple case of fitting the sword into the hand, then over the shoulder to rest. And this is where I'll leave part 1. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you go and check out the channel for my other builds. If you subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date, not only with this build, but all my other builds as well, of course. Hit the like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.